Notifications are sent, but I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Mary, are you all set right now?
I am, yeah.
All right, great. I'd like to call tonight's school committee meeting to order. I'd like to start by reading of the vision statement. Allison, would you be willing to read our vision statement?
Okay, the Harvard Public Schools community, a leader in educational excellence, guides each student to realize his or her highest potential by balancing academic achievement with personal well-being in the pursuit of individual dreams. The students engage in learning how to access and apply knowledge, think critically and creatively, and communicate effectively. They continue to develop the confidence and ability to collaborate, contribute, and adapt in an ever-changing world.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to open it up now to any interested citizens' commentary. If you could come, the mic is on, Paul, if you can just let us know who you are. And
Good evening, Paul Richards, Westcott Road. Interested in talking a little bit about the surveillance camera policy and the fact that there are actually cameras there. I'm staunchly opposed to them because I think it's an overreaction to what occurred, as serious as that issue is. As told to me by the vice principal, nothing like this has happened in 30 years that he's been employed by the Harvard School Department. The likelihood of use of cameras is quite high. The likelihood of them being effective is quite low. And with that, there's an equation that I think maybe not enough weight has been given to the cost, and not just financial, but also emotional for the kids, for everyone who enters that building. I think it says to our kids, we don't trust you, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think that we should openly trust them, and then if something happens, we go through the channels that we can go through and try to work it out. There's been a history in this country of abuse of power by government officials, and I cast no aspersions on anyone in this room or anyone who's currently employed by the town. But we have to think, when we do policies like this, you got to think of the worst possible abuse you've ever heard of and write a policy that would keep that from happening. There need to be better checks and balances. I believe that if the law enforcement is to have access to that footage, there should be a written request that's approved by someone on this committee or the superintendent or a couple of people, and access should be tracked, and tracked automatically, who logged in, and why they were there, why they were looking at it. I don't believe law enforcement should have unfettered access, and that was stated at the safety meeting that they would. There's some questions, is how do we know it's secure? Who put it in? Is it wireless? Is it hardwired? Is there a security company monitoring for, illegal access to it? Is it on a separate system than the rest of the school? I went to the ACLU's website and Newton Public Schools to look at a few things, and one of the things that I guess it might make the most sense to go through the policy, the draft policy as it is laid out. Some specific questions or comments I have about it. In the general statement, section A, number 1, the signage, it's my belief that where every camera is placed, there should be a sign. It should be very explicit. Little anecdotal information, the kids have already made a map of where the cameras are in the school. It was told to me by sort of like the Hogwarts map, where they knew where everything was. Mostly as a joke, but if the good kids are making maps, you can be sure the kids who have plans that aren't good know where they are as well. And that's one of the things that they've determined with security cameras, is it doesn't actually drop crime rate, it just defers where the crime happens to where there aren't cameras. Section B, number 1, it's my understanding there are going to be cameras in the cafeteria, and we vote there, and we have a right to vote in private. How are we to know, the voters, that the cameras aren't on? So it's my view, if you're going to have cameras in there, they should be removed for voting or covered, some way that the voter knows they're not being watched. Number 2, classrooms aren't defined as off limits for cameras in the policy, and I think it should be. C, under recording, number one's kind of vague. If the superintendent issues further guidance, shouldn't that be subject to this body's approval? If there's going to be a change in the policy, shouldn't it come back to the board that made the policy? The law enforcement access I touched on. Section C, number 3, it cites compliance with the law. Recorded information will be available for use as necessary. It's common to cite what law is applicable. And there's a example of that in the town of Newton's memorandum between the school department and the police department as to how they work together. They actually cite specific Mass General laws. Section 4, students or staff identified in security cameras in violation of the policies subject to disciplinary action. I do hope, and I wish it would be explicitly stated, that with due process. The data storage in Section D. What is the secure place that's identified there? Are the cameras wireless? Are they on separate hardwired? I touched on that. And did we hire a security firm to put them in? What is the applicable law if things are released? Section 3, any video recordings used for purposes in school buildings are the sole property. If they're let out without permission, what's supposed to happen, and what laws can we as parents look up to find out what's okay and what isn't okay? It's a general thing where I feel like this needs more work before it's adopted. I also feel that if the cameras are on, and I assume they are, that they shouldn't be because there's no policy yet. And it's not going to help with what happened. We need to worry about this going forward of what we want to do. Now, I'm not going to be happy that the cameras are going in. I assume they're going to stay there. But I really think that you really have to work on something very explicit and come from the point of view that you are infringing on people's privacy, which apparently has been determined to be acceptable via the Constitution, but doesn't mean that it absolves us, those of us who are going to live with this policy, and after us that have to live with it, that it needs to be proved that it's necessary. And I haven't seen any evidence that these are effective even. So, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Paul. We don't usually respond immediately to public commentary. Given that this is on the agenda, I'm sure some of the comments you've raised will be part of our discussion, but I'm not going to take the time to kind of go through everything that you just addressed now, but just know that it has been captured and will be part of a future discussion. Thank you very much. Thanks. All right. First up on the agenda is a trip approval. Just FYI, Kirsten will not be able to be here this evening due to a work commitment, and Nancy Lancelotti will not be here this evening due to a family obligation.
Student report, isn't it?
And the student report, thanks, because in that whole thing, I've mislaid my agenda. So, Allison, would you like to give us your student report?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Not that much is going on. The swim team had a meet on Friday, and we won. And then we have a meet tomorrow. So does the basketball teams, I think. Mm-hmm. That's what I've been told. And then hockey has a game on Wednesday, and I think there's a track meet coming up, but I'm not exactly sure when. And then, Thursday, okay, Thursday. And then the Ludo Festival is next Thursday, so that'll be fun. And then Student Council hosted Snowflake last Friday, and that was a big success. We raised a lot of money.
Didn't realize it was a money-raising opportunity.
Yeah.
Fun. How many kids went?
I don't know the exact number. I have it in my email if you want me to look.
That's okay.
But
right.
I think it was like a lot more than they expected.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have the trip approval. And Kristen here, and
Hello again.
Hello.
I'm Kristen McManus. I'm one of the 11th and 12th grade teachers at Bromfield. And this year, along with Jack, we started the Business Professionals of America Club, which we sought your approval for last spring. So we're looking for approval for an overnight trip in March to go to the State Leadership Conference, where the students will compete in various different business and technology subjects. So actually, Jack, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you're thinking about competing in.
So there's many different competition areas, and I believe now we have everyone set as to what they're competing in. Like I said, I think there's 71 different competition areas at the state level, but I think I'm doing economic research team, and then I'm doing a smaller individual team aside of that.
So we have a few economic research teams, actually. It's one of the popular events this year. But we also have students who will be doing graphic design promotion, interview skills, prepared speech, extemporaneous speech, and a lot of the sort of more general business and human resource marketing management events is what they call them. Eventually, I'd love to see the club, branch out into some more IT events. But for now, we're sort of getting our feet wet and seeing how it goes. So at the State Leadership Conference, we travel to Framingham, Massachusetts, and it is on Saturday. We stay at the hotel, and it is just chock full of events all day. The judges are brought in, just area business people, alumni of the organization, and they sit and they judge the students as they do their presentations. And it's wonderful. Even interview skills, the students will sit and have an interview with two people who are, in the business world, which is really great. And then on Sunday, we would travel to Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School, which is in Marlborough. And at that site, there's computer labs, and there's just various amounts of classrooms where the students would have any written or computerized events that they might be taking. And then we'd be bused to and from, and that's part of the Massachusetts Business Professionals of America does that on our behalf. And then on Monday, the students would miss school, and it would end with a brunch and an awards ceremony. And the awards are sometimes for these competitive events, and sometimes they're also for there's really so many areas that the students could be recognized in this organization. And if the students qualify, they're able to go to the National Leadership Conference, which this year happens to be in Boston. So it's nice and close, and it's right at the Heinz Convention Center. So I know a lot of students would really like the opportunity at the state level, there's about 500 students who compete, and then at the national level, you have students from all over the country, and that's about 5,000 students that compete. So it's a really, really wonderful opportunity for the students.
when is the national conference?
That is, oh goodness, May, I want to say the weekend, it's usually like the first weekend of May. It's actually Mother's Day. So, so I think that's like May 8th or something to that effect that weekend then. Mhm.
We have your agenda and your request forms. Anybody have questions for Kristen?
Just curious, how many students are in your club right now?
So at our first few meetings, we had about 18 students actually, but there are about 12 to 14 that are interested in going to the state conference, which for a first-year club with Business Professional America, that's huge. Usually, you know, I actually used to be an advisor for this club at a school I previously taught at, and we had maybe 3 kids the first year. So 12 to 14 is wonderful.
With that many, how many teachers or chaperones would be going with you?
Sure, so it would be myself and then one other teacher chaperone. So I've asked one other teacher, and he's just checking his schedule to make sure he can do it.
That's good.
Any other questions? So this is we got the club approved last year, but you weren't on the trip last year, right? This is the first
Right,
time
right.
trip.
We did the club approval in June so as to prepare for this year.
Okay. And you anticipate this being an annual event?
Yes, yeah.
All right. If there are no other questions, then need a motion to approve the trip.
I move that we approve the
Business.
Professionals of America?
Business Professionals of America Conference March 5th through March 7th in Framingham and Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. The trip is approved.
Great.
We'd love to hear back and hear how it went, and
We can do that.
good luck.
Thank you
you
very
so much.
much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, now moving on. Welcome, Maureen. No, no worries. Superintendent's report, Linda.
Okay, I put in there, the first thing that I put in was that the leadership team, which included those that don't normally get into classrooms, so Mary, Lorraine, Chris, Mark, and the administrators, the principals, went through classrooms at Bromfield and went through classrooms at HES, just really to review the teacher rubric and to know what's being focused on in the classrooms and to get a sense of what was going on at both schools. And I thought it was a really positive experience, something different and fun. At Bromfield, it was the department chairs classrooms that we went through, and at HES, it was volunteers. And it just really helps us to stay focused on what is most important and why we're making decisions and doing the work that we're doing is about the students. I thought also that, it was not disruptive. 2 or 3 adults went in the classrooms and the students just continued on and the teachers continued on. And then we were able to give feedback to the teachers once we were done and do some reflections ourselves. So we're planning to do it about 2 times a year when we're together as a group like that. Next is exciting. We have not officially been accepted into the MSBA program, but we are closer every day. If we weren't going to be recommended, we would have known that in December. So when we didn't get notified in December, we got more hopeful. And so I called MSBA, and they said basically that our project will be recommended to the board, and then it'll be the board's decision which projects get funded. But they put really only forward those that could possibly be funded, so it looks really good for us. But we won't know officially until after January 27th, so we continue to wait.
January 28th, what time can we?
Yes, we will. I included for you a copy of Mark Force's newsletter. It's informative. It's a tool that he's using in order to really help his custodians feel appreciated, but also to know what's happening at the different buildings, because the custodians tend to stay in just one building, and so he's really trying to build a team. And that came from some work we've been doing with his whole team around a better culture and what impact they have on the schools. So I find that helpful. Next is the calendar proposal. It has been vetted by the committee. It has been vetted by both schools and all who work there. And you may not want to take a vote on it tonight, but I wanted you to see it. And Mary served on that committee. And basically, it looks pretty similar to past calendars. The vacation weeks stay the same. December is a little bit shorter, just happens to be that the 24th falls on a Saturday, so that shortens that entire vacation. Another change is we had reduced the ERs significantly this year, and it felt some effect of that. And the main effect is that's the time that department chairs and vertical teams get together to talk through curriculum, to look at work samples, to really refine some of what they do in the classrooms. So we decided to add in another half day, which we feel we could actually get more hours together as a cross-district. And we're going to start to work on how does what happens at the elementary school really impact also what happens at Bromfield and vice versa. So we are doing that type of work. So that's one of the things that was added, was one more half day. You'll see it in February and another one in April on that calendar. Other than that, things are pretty similar. And it has us getting out of school on the 13th. And I can't remember if that's with the 5 snow days.
gotta be
That's
without.
got to be without. So the 20th
Yeah.
would be with the 5 snow days.
I think, do anything else, because I have a couple of comments.
I don't think so. Nope.
Okay, so hang on, I'm just adding here. Are we back up to the original 13? We had 13 ER days before we started to cut back. So 2, 4, 5,
No, we
6.
had 17 ERs originally,
Oh, way
and 3
back.
half-days,
Okay.
2 years ago.
17?
Yep.
You're sure?
That
We did,
sounds
yeah.
right, yeah.
Okay, all right, so now we're back to 13, and 2 of them are
13.
two half, plus
No.
2, or 2 of those are half-days?
Um,
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, well, 13 the last day of school, so 13 plus 2 half-days.
yes.
Okay. I think what you need to do is list the last day of school as actually the 20th,
I do think you're right on that.
an inclusion
Yeah.
of 5 snow days.
Yeah.
So you may want to schedule the ER on the 20th and move it back if we don't use the snow days. Also, I noticed November 11th isn't noted down below in the box. So there's a red date without any notation as to what it's for. So you might want to add November 11th to the box, Mary.
Yep.
Also, I think April 17th should be in red for
Mhm.
Patriots Day,
Beginning of April vacation.
and then the beginning of April break.
That didn't show up in color.
Well, I have a
No.
color copy. It's not in red.
Well, neither is the week colored.
You don't know that you want, I guess maybe the week could be colored. Do you want the whole week in red if
Oh, I
it's
see
off? Is that was the point of red, was it's a day off of school?
Yes.
Okay, then you take off the also.
It is colored on
Yeah,
our
okay.
original.
This one
I
has
don't
it
know
red.
why it didn't.
Oh, I just
Yeah.
printed this
Oh,
out.
it just doesn't show up well on.
It was scanned.
Maybe.
So because it's in the
First
PDF,
semester?
it's a PDF
Of a scan.
scan email, yeah.
Interesting.
So
It
it's,
didn't really show up
At
on
all.
here, but it showed up on
Okay.
Mary's.
So some
Okay.
of them showed up red and some of them didn't, or did another
let
one?
me see that one, Mary.
Is
the
April
actual
17th red on there?
No,
Mine.
never mind.
Yes, this is what the actual one looks like.
Okay, all right, as long as
It
it's,
is just very faint.
no, the date, the number 17 should be red.
It is.
No, the square is colored in red, but the number is not red.
February 20th is in red because that's President's Day.
I see,
So
the
Patriots Day
numbers,
should have a
okay.
hot, be red.
Okay, I got it now. Thinking you meant the
We're
box.
down in the weeds here, but
Yeah,
I think
okay.
as long
The
as
number
to be
needs to be
consistent.
on.
And then November 11th added, and then 20th. So that's all I had.
Yeah,
for
the
that.
reason the 17th is not in color is because this is
I understand.
mass produced, but.
Okay, I think in all fairness to Kirsten and Nancy, given that there's not an urgency to approving this, it'd be nice to bring it back at our next meeting for school committee approval.
No problem.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on your report?
There was just 2 other mentions. Jim O'Shea and I attended the Superintendent's Scholars Luncheon and had invited Lily Moore Eisenberg for her many accomplishments throughout her years at Bromfield. And she attended with us, and they make a nice booklet of all of the honored students, and they read their vita, and it is just amazing to hear what those students have accomplished. And then they give them a small gift, and we have lunch together, so it was really nice. And I just put the quote they asked them for a quote, and I put the one that she had selected in there. And lastly, I had just made note that the 5th grade continues to visit the the elders and the senior citizens and share their choral music with them, which is something David Gilfix organizes, and the students seem to really enjoy. And that was it.
I liked her quote that sort of reinforced the whole dreaming. in
Vision
the
statement, yes.
Great.
Thought so too.
All right, thanks. We don't have it in the agenda, but Lorraine, would you like to do your finance report now?
If you'd like it now, that would be fine.
I would love to do it.
Alrighty. There's a couple extras there, too. Okay, again, it was updated by the personnel spreadsheet in, I think that was in November, though. But it's up to date, I believe as up to date as it can be. The only thing that may need adjusting at this point in time, and I will have to check in with her, is the special ed, because that's a real moving target.
Yeah.
You know, with pending possible placements and some students coming out of placements and whatever. So that's the only line that I'm not confident at this point in time.
Okay.
But as you can see with all of the things accounted for that we would know at this time, obviously another biggie is our utilities. We don't know that at this time, but things are tracking nicely as well as the actual cost and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you just wait till February.
Yeah. Yeah, that one kind of tends to hit us a little later in the game.
Right.
But as you can see, I'm looking for any other changes, and I don't see any of note. So yeah, so we're ending the year, at this point in time, projecting a surplus of $45,000 for the end of the year, if everything else stays as is, which of course it won't. But oftentimes the changes offset each other anyway. You know, something comes up, something goes down, so, but it's looking very, very good, and the only one, like I say, that could be a large change, I think, would be special ed.
So you know how we sort of balanced out what we were taking from circuit breaker and left a bigger chunk for this year. If we had to, we could certainly allocate more to it in this year,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Okay. If we had an emergency.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's always our option.
Any questions for Lorraine?
It was so easy.
We'll grill you next time, just to make it feel better. Thank you, Lorraine. All right, next on the agenda is to develop student advisory meeting topics. So as you recall, it really helped to have topics ahead of time for the 5 students that we met with, so then they go out to their bigger student council and get feedback for us. So last topic we did was on electives, whether they were having trouble getting electives, APs, how many APs they were taking. We touched on technology again, and got some useful feedback from them. We had aligned on other topics that we had not used yet, and those being National Honor Society, gender difference, getting some insights from them as a possibility, reviewing the youth at risk survey with them and getting their concerns and feedback. Are there adequate resources? Do they feel we need to add anything else? And I don't know if we want to go there, but we had suggested graduation gowns as a possible topic. And then also prom, if we provide transportation, would the students actually take it? Do they feel that they would use that? Because currently there is none provided, and so students are on their own, but we don't know if that's kind of the thing, the way to do it, to get the limo, get whatever the driver, and a bus would be totally frowned on. So those are options that we could discuss with them. So before I send it out to the 5 of them, I thought I'd touch back and see if there were other topics that were more prevailing, or whether these are good and which ones we should go to them. Thoughts?
Do we have one about school spirit, or is that athletic advisory?
It was athletic advisory, but that's good.
I don't know, we've been talking a little bit about how you, because different sports teams do different things on their game day or whatever, like they dress up or they have a theme. We didn't know if there could be more of a, I don't know, something unified.
School-wide kind of thing?
School-wide, right, that wouldn't depend on just the captains of the teams doing this, but maybe the student council figuring something out where you don't have to be an athlete to participate or whatever.
I know they do that at HES, right, with wear
Yeah, Spirit
colors,
Day.
or
Wear your-
crazy hair day, or...
Yeah, exact, pajama day,
Yeah.
right, stuff like that.
And they don't have any of that at TBS? No Spirit Days?
I think the school council.
They wore
Just
Patriots
the-
stuff last year when they went to the Super
The
Bowl.
seniors do.
Yeah.
Seniors have a week where they have a theme every day, but that's at the end of the year, and it's just seniors.
Okay. Could certainly go with that. Any other
I think
topics?
that's a good idea. I think the youth risk survey, I don't know, I'm just thinking back to an email I got on Friday.
Yeah.
There was the snowflake
Snowflake.
dance, and there was an email saying there was a concern that kids might be participating in inappropriate behaviors prior to that, so I don't know, it seems timely to me. It seems like it's not something that's, certainly going away, so.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
think they're all good topics, including Mary's new suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Graduation, would that be more appropriate? We have, our next meeting's in March, and then we have another one, I believe, have we done 2 or 3? Do you know? We've done 3. So we have 2 more, March and probably April or something. So I could do all 5 and give them a lot to talk about at 7 o'clock in the morning.
I would hold off on the graduation one.
So do the Youth at Risk, the Honor Society, and the Spirit Days?
The other one that I think might be helpful to have some info from them on is attendance. You know, particularly since,
It's at one point.
did we talk with them?
Yeah.
The new policy?
Not so much policy, but why are they missing?
That might have been before we had them go and talk with the council first and get feedback, but we did talk attendance with them at one point.
Okay.
Might have been the one you weren't able to get to, but
Okay.
what kind of things would we want to get feedback on from them? Why are people missing school?
Yeah, from their point of view.
Okay.
What is, what happened, what are some effects that they feel?
Okay.
Even if they're not the ones absent, from students being absent?
Okay.
Well, I think you get good information from an anonymous, people could answer, give anonymous feedback as to why they're absent, and also what the effects is, because if it's negative, they might not feel comfortable saying something in front of their peers. That might come across the wrong way, so.
Maybe if we float the idea of doing a survey by them, if they feel a survey would be useful.
Maybe
or-
just ask if they think that would be positively useful.
Okay. All right, so attendance, National Honor Society, do people have anything else that we would ask them about National Honor Society? Is it, all I have was gender difference, trying to get some insights as to why more girls participate, boys don't participate. Is there?
I guess, are they aware of the gender difference? And if they are, what reason might they?
Okay.
Cause?
Great. Okay, so I'll propose this for National Honor Society, Youth at Risk. We'll need to give them some results for that. Spirit Days and attendance. Great.
I can give you some data for attendance too, just so they have something to share.
I'll draft something up and have you add to it.
Great.
Great, perfect, thank you. I think our next meeting is March 18th. Is that I'll bring it up at the next meeting and confirm attendance. All right, update on the parking lot project. We have been fast and furiously meeting with town boards. We've, since the start of the year, we've met with, Linda's been to all of them, I think.
Yeah, there's only 3.
The Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Historical Commission. Another meeting with Rich Noda and Rob from David Ross and Associates. We are on the docket for the Pond Committee later this month, and there are now 2 public hearings, one Concom and one historical, scheduled for early February. Planning Board voted unanimously to support the project. Concom and historical both raised some issues, which we worked to address this morning to see what we could do. What do you want to add? If I'll touch on, CPIC rated the parking lot anyway, so they will give a recommendation even if they're not using capital funds on something, if it meets the criteria of being over 20,000 and or a useful life of 5 years. Yes. So not perhaps any surprise, it ranked the lowest of all of the 10 capital projects that were voted on. It ranked the lowest. So the likelihood of approving capital funding was limited there. When they were told that we were using Devon's funds, that allayed some concern, but not all of it. I think they still question whether it's a worthwhile project for that much money. I think if we were to obtain support from each board as we go through, Concom, Historical being probably the biggest ones, and obviously Board of Selectmen, then Capital would, they indicated that their ranking would go up. So it's not required that Capital approve it, but they will provide a recommendation either way. So that's on the funding side of it. I've been keeping Stu, our liaison, Stu Sklar, Board of Selectmen, in the loop as to what's happening. At this point, I think the earliest that we would see a vote by the Board of Selectmen would be at their February 16th meeting, because we won't have had the public hearings on the 3rd and the 4th before their January 25th meeting, 26th meeting, whichever I was hoping to get it then, but I don't think that they'll vote in favor of it without having those two boards, the open public hearings. So the plans are available. We talked today about making some slight modifications to address the Concom concerns. We are within the 75-foot buffer of the wetlands, so we're needing to scale back from that. We're going to lose some parking spaces, I think a total of 5 or 4.
8 there.
No, but we're putting them in.
Put more in. The
Right,
front.
so we're adding some visitor parking spots on the drive-in on the right-hand side to be parallel parking as opposed to inside the lot, so. actually,
like where buses sort of
queue up, yeah.
queue up now?
Yeah, so that would be visitor parking.
Probably, yes, right, 4 spaces we thought in total, maybe.
Yeah, he was confident, I think he'd get 4 or 5, at least 4, he said. And the sidewalk will now not be paved beyond the 75-foot buffer, so we're losing some of the sidewalk and some of the parking. We are going to comply with the regulations for the drainage field, but most likely not going to do anything above and beyond that. That's required, even though Concom was requesting that we beef that up somehow above and beyond the regulations.
I think finally Rob was willing to add some vegetation in the basin.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That was added.
So there's some progress towards their goal. We're going to meet them in the middle. The other Historical had a concern about the Minister's Walk, which is the walk between the general store and the other property down in the back of it, and then that dumps into the parking lot. Ron Ostberg, who's been involved in many boards on town, and was on the Historical Commission, raised the point that the overall plan was to have a walkway extend from the Hildreth House all the way down to the old boathouse, which I think is at the pond. I've never seen a boathouse, but it must have been there. But to have that be sort of a green walkway all the way down. We're going to work towards helping that goal by moving the sidewalk that would be abutting the parking spaces. So we had wanted a concrete parking sidewalk. We're going to move it over, have it be a footpath that works around the natural topography. So it'll be the cemetery wall, green, footpath, green, parking lot to fulfill that need. So we're working with boards to try and get everybody behind this and hope to have a positive result out of the public hearings and votes by both of those boards to support the project. Everybody's welcome to come on. I'll keep you posted on the public hearing. It'd be great to have school committee support there. And if
When is it? Or when are
I
they?
believe it's
February 3rd and 4th.
February 3rd and 4th. And if there are members of the public who are in support of having a paved brownfield parking lot that will increase safety, lighting, ease of use, looks, everything, then they're welcome to attend the public hearing and express their support of the project as well. Did I miss anything?
No, that's perfect.
Great. Okay, so now we have the security video policy second reading. Looks like, Mary, you put in the changes from the first reading.
Yep, in the bold.
In the bold, okay. I don't know if you want to address some of the concerns raised and add perhaps maybe Mass General Law citations, or do you want to walk through the policy? I don't know, who's on the policy subcommittee?
3 of us.
Okay,
Right.
why don't one of you take us through the policy, and then we can see how we want to address any of the concerns that were raised this evening.
To read it? Or just walk, read?
How do you want to do it? It's supposed to be a second reading, which
Right.
would be,
Um,
so want to talk about the concerns first, or?
Why don't we talk about the concerns first? Okay, so what I heard was, so taking a step back, I do think, as Paul rightly realized, the cameras are in and probably will stay in. They weren't the only response that we've had to security issues. We certainly had a conversation around this table. It's in conjunction with talking with students, promoting respect, but in, I think, everyone's view, to take no action would have also been irresponsible. The cameras really aren't there to catch anyone in the act of doing something proactively. It's only to be viewed in the event that something does happen. No one's watching the cameras, no one's watching the videos as it happens. It's going off-site. Maybe you could address that. Where is the
Sure.
website?
And in particular, we're not calling it a surveillance camera. While they are in use all the time, they're not being viewed all the time, which
Yeah.
I think you just made that point. So we're calling it security cameras versus surveillance cameras.
Right.
They do go to a protected server, which is separate from the rest of the servers that hold other information for the district.
Yeah.
They're just used for that.
Do we own that server?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was put in by the same company, First Choice, that did our phone system, so they are well aware of security issues, and we do have web access, but it's secured web access, and it requires passwords, and there are only 5 access passwords, and so, we keep those tight.
And is your authorization required for anyone to view it, or law enforcement can view it without your authorization?
Law enforcement, I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah.
We have not given law enforcement, by the way, any access yet.
Okay.
It's all pending this review of this policy. They will have a password access. They plan to only use that if something is happening, or if they need to, their thought is having access would, they would have permission to get into the system, which they can do from phones or iPads with the password. The chief would do that, and that would be in the case of something underway. So he would have real-time view of something that was happening in the school. Other than that, they will not be reviewing the tapes. Unless something happens, then we would review it and release it to them if needed.
So they could actually observe
They could,
real time?
real-time, yes.
Without informing you, or?
Yep, the chief would be able to, yes.
Okay.
And that would be, I might not be available either. I mean, this is, we're taking worst-case scenario.
Yeah.
But we do trust the chief, and
It would be just him? Is he the only one?
he could designate someone from his department. So that's why we put law enforcement personnel. So it may be him, or if he is off, unable to do it, he may designate someone else.
Do we think it would be useful to have an MOU in which it might state that if they do go into the system, are we informed, or that they would let us know? They don't, it sounds like we don't want to wait for them to get our approval if there is
Right.
an event happening
Sure.
where something's
Yeah.
needed immediately.
Sure.
But do they want to, that they
We could do
would need
that.
to let us know that they had accessed it? And
What we could do is put some of that into guidelines, a separate guideline
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
There is no cameras in the cafeteria. There are no cameras in the classrooms. Those were all things.
Says they may include it, though, in the cafeteria.
Yes, they are not included right now.
Okay. if we do put them in, then we would need to make concessions for voting.
Yep.
We would need to turn them off and advise people that they're off.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, what would be the reasons for putting them in the cafeteria?
There was incidents, at least probably 3 years ago, where students had broken into the school and were
Okay.
taking condiments and squirting them all over the lockers. So that might be an instance, if that happened on multiple occasions, that we would move a camera and put it in the cafeteria. I think it would be based on incidents, not necessarily without cause. I mean, we have a limited number of cameras, I think, but that was certainly have come in handy, because that happened 2 or 3 times, I believe.
It's also an exit entrance point to the school, so there may be a time that we would add a security camera to that area, which really working on entrances and exits and hallways and corridors that help us to be able to capture who comes in or out of the school if needed. I mean, again, it's only if an incident occurs. Many schools, they are more surveillance, and they're on all the time, and there's a viewpoint in the school, and there's monitors actually visible, even to the public, of what's being recorded. We've chosen, I think you, under your direction, have really chosen to have a different view of the cameras, which is just they're there, they're recording, but no one's viewing it unless needed.
Is there an MGL citation that we should add to this? We have a legal reference of the U.S. Department of Justice, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, but are there any MGL laws that are cross-referenced for this?
We can look into that.
Okay.
So are you talking about C3?
You know, it says in compliance with the law.
C1 and C3.
D3 also talks about applicable law.
Okay. Any other under the E?
Let me see what my
useful
notes
to
are.
address?
I don't have any problem with Paul's suggestion that C4, we say with due process. That's part of our handbook anyway.
Yep. Okay, great.
But to state it there is fine with me.
Should it mention the handbook? I mean, that's sort of where our disciplinary,
Cross-reference the
Policy.
handbook?
It says student handbook up here. That notification about the cameras will be in the handbooks.
So we probably need a cross-reference at the bottom for the student handbook.
because then that, you can go right to the handbook and figure out what the process is.
Okay.
You're talking about,
C4.
are you talking about C4? Or are you talking about at the very end, cross-reference?
Talking about adding the cross-reference at the very
End
end
of
where
the
we
whole thing.
usually
Mhm.
do
Yep.
to address C4,
Yep.
and including with due process.
Yep.
I don't know that it's, I mean, if the kids already have it mapped, we're not worried about it being mapped and the kids knowing where they are. It's, we're not trying to hide them, we're not trying to catch them at anything. It's really more that they know that where it is, and it's a security, safety measure. Some of the kids expressed to us concerns that they didn't feel safe in the school when the fires happened, so I think it works both ways. You know, it's a terrible time in our society where we need to do things like this, but I think it's responsible, and our aim is certainly to be in the safety of all students, so.
Some schools put in dummy cameras. I mean, we didn't choose
Do
to
they
do
really?
that.
Wow.
Just to,
Apartment buildings do it all the time. Yeah.
In D1, so we can save these for more than 30 days if we
if-
want to?
If they need to be.
yeah, if it becomes part of an investigation, perhaps, then you need that clause in there that you would save them for more than 30 days.
But the usual would be to delete it around 30 days?
It'll
like-
roll off and it
It'll
gets
roll.
deleted because it's a data file.
Okay.
Can I ask about C1, when we say the superintendent or school officials and/or law enforcement personnel, Perhaps that seems too broad, and maybe it should be something tighter in terms of the superintendent, or, you know, in lieu, you're saying about in lieu of that person, a designate, you know, your specific designate, and then for the law enforcement personnel, it would be the police chief, or, you know, his or her designee, so then it doesn't seem that it's any school official or anyone in law personnel that feels that it's a narrow and appropriate sort of range. I mean, could we?
I mean, this is tighter than we had it. We had it before, appropriate and designated personnel.
It was broad.
It was really broad. But
broad.
Jim O'Shea has access, would have password. Scott Hoffman has password. So that's, so it is school officials. And then we wanted this to be broad enough that if that
If
happens at
fear
Hildreth
gone
too. Right?
somewhere,
Yeah.
there's just somebody that is your designate. And you don't want to make it too broad.
Too broad, too narrow, yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean,
Well, how about the superintendent, designated school officials, and designated law enforcement personnel? Would that work? Is that too tight?
and do we want to say that it's the superintendent
If
that
they're
designates? Is that understood?
With board approval, I would think.
Well, you wouldn't want to make public necessarily
wouldn't.
everyone who's.
No.
Right. But I think designated means that there's some process to who has the password. I think that's all it implies, which I think is appropriate.
That's fine. So superintendent,
Designated school officials.
designated school officials, and
Or a law,
designated.
or a designated law enforcement person.
And/or. Yeah, I don't know that we can designate the law enforcement personnel, that's my only question.
No, but
Chief Denmark.
he could designate it. He could designate, I meant.
Right, but if this goes, I mean, what if it were a bomb threat and it's out of Chief Denmark's hands, then, I mean, is he then the designator of the SWAT team that would come in kind of thing? I mean, taking the worst case scenario. Does that,
The law would give him the right to.
designate whoever he chooses, right? I just don't know if it matters to put designated law enforcement personnel, or they have their own protocol for how would see, and, you know, at some point you have to trust that
Yeah.
they're doing what they have to do. Okay. Okay. Do we want to add in a letter of school committee approval on C1?
My problem with that is it then would have to be done in public, and then you are making public who's designated, so.
Oh, further guidance, okay. Guidance.
So,
Well, like, what are we talking about? in
are you talking
terms
about the
of-
second sentence?
Yeah, so
Oh, the
what does
second
that mean?
sentence, I see, that's fine. We could take that sentence out, as far as I'm concerned.
That's if the current law changes and we
Well, we would
don't know
come
about it,
before-
or, I mean.
Law changes and we're out of compliance, it would have to come back to
Yeah.
the board.
I think we take that sentence out, I think. What do
Okay.
you think? Does it have to be there?
No?
I'm not gonna do anything with that without.
Confusing sentence
Right.
anyway.
I don't know what further guidance is.
Right.
Okay. So we're gonna take that out. Okay, great.
I thought you meant
No.
something else,
I don't
but that's
think we
great, yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to get addressed? So I think, Mary and Linda, if you could make all those changes, check the MGL citations and bring it back for final approval, that would be great. Anybody have any further comments, suggestions?
Come back on January 25th with it?
Yeah.
I appreciate Paul coming out and
Yep.
sharing his concerns and having us think a little more about it.
Can't wait to share more.
And next time Nancy and Kirsten will hopefully be here.
And in the meantime, they are up and running, and I don't think that we should not be using the cameras.
No recording.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next is the update on the science labs.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you take this one,
That's
Linda.
fine. On Friday, wait a minute, what day of the week was that? It was
Friday.
Friday, thank you. Friday afternoon, one of, a vendor for science labs came out to our site, and he's working up some visual proposals of what those labs could look like. He took measurements, and he works with 5 different furniture vendors, but his company is on the Massachusetts bid, which is great, and it will be the first step towards getting some idea as to what we can do. He really feels like he can modernize what we have by taking out cabinets, replacing the way the students are configured in those classrooms and making it a versatile space, which is what our goal was right from the beginning. So it's exciting. We have not received the visuals. We don't know what he's going to suggest, but he spoke knowledgeably. He's done quite a few schools in Massachusetts that we could even choose to go visit. Deb was there, and again, we're going to see what he brings back, and then we can work with him. We could end up working with a different vendor, but again, it's our first kind of idea of what could happen in those rooms.
Who is it?
I knew you were going to ask me that. And I had
But if
his
he's
card.
on the state, that's sort of like the playground thing, like you don't have to go out to bid.
State
then?
approved.
Right. So, that's good. Right. And he's probably going to give us some options, like this would be if it was the best state-of-the-art possible look. Here's what you could do with a little less. And we talked about the fact that we may want the plans for all of the classrooms, but then piece it, as to what we could afford. But we wanted people to say wow when they walked in those science rooms from what they say now, which is, ooh. They looked at the storage rooms too, which are a mess.
Yeah.
A mess just because of space and old, everything is very old and not operating well. So he's gonna do things that'll make them look different, which is great, and much more functional for the students. So I'll keep you informed.
And the BLW, or the,
Contract was signed. Thanks for some additions from people who looked at that. That's the HVAC contract that sort of taking what GRLA did for us and now taking that to someone who knows the business of those HVAC instead of a subcontract to GRLA. And now they're going to come up and work in those air handlers and see what they could do for us for air exchange.
they're not the actual air exchange people though, right? They're
They're
still-
engineers.
They're the engineers, okay. Great. And when do they start?
They said they would let us know, but they thought they'd be able to start in late January.
Okay, because part of it was having cold enough weather to test the compressors in freezing weather. That's now here, so
Yeah,
that's great.
They should be able to do that.
Great. Great, thanks.
Yep.
Reviewing the annual town report. So thank you, both of you, for putting this
Jennifer
together.
really did it all.
Thank you, Jennifer. Not having done it and having done it the first time when you're thrown into it, I know how.
I got to crib from.
Yeah, you see a little bit from here,
Yeah,
you see a little bit from there, but it's still a daunting task at the beginning, so thank you. Given the two of you have put it together, I don't know that we need to read line by line, although Maureen, we're happy to do that if you want us to
Do you
read
have
through
this? I read
Do
it
you
at
have-
home. I
Okay,
did read it at
okay,
home.
great.
Trying to pull it up, but I'm kind of slow, so if you have.
There are some updates on that one.
So,
I liked that you put in when our meetings are, really pushed for more involvement.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great idea.
so I've got some feedback.
Oh, and I think I did make some more changes. I remember I finished this sentence. In my
I'll
last
be
meeting,
able
I said,
to, dot,
yeah,
dot, dot.
I finished that sentence.
You did?
I did.
Oh, I still don't have that.
You don't
Okay,
have that one?
so
That's the one I sent.
that was the one, okay. I thought I printed that. All right.
I can send that
Okay.
one, but I just cleaned up some language.
So Maureen, do you have any input, corrections? Should I
I
plow
did,
through
I
what
noticed
have?
it was different from past years, which is kind of good. I just, you know what I mean? If it's
Not
same
boilerplate.
thing, just updated every year, then, for people who read them.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna throw my comments at you.
Okay.
I don't know how to do the paragraphs. The paragraph that starts Harvard Public Schools, I don't know, do you say Harvard, to be consistent, do we say Harvard Public Schools, or do you say Harvard's Public Schools?
I would actually say Harvard Public Schools.
Okay, Harvard Public Schools. On the school committee goals, on the bottom of the first page, you're in a little bit of a quandary, because some of them are the commitments and some of them are the goals. I don't know, because I took the goals directly from our document. The goal, actually, number 1 would be to upgrade the furniture and cabinetry in the science labs, period.
Okay. I just took also
You amalgam,
just
mushed
to
them
make
together.
it a little richer sentence, but I took it from the,
I'm not attached, you could do certainly number 1. It's just that the goal for it was actually a 2-year goal.
right.
So I think that's fine to leave it that way. But I do want number 3 changed to be what the goal was. So I have it on the second page, number 3, to reduce the financial demands on Harvard schools families by eliminating or reducing athletic fees, bus fees, and/or kindergarten tuition. The and other fees was
Okay.
not in the goal.
Okay. I changed that because I thought I would hear from Kirsten about the drama fees and other things like that.
But it wasn't the goal that was approved.
Okay, all right, right.
Then I have, so I'll hand these out.
Did you notice on the first page, the first sentence,
Yeah.
guided by the,
I did, yeah, see, this
Okay.
is an older version because
Yeah.
that was fixed too.
okay, I thought you.
There's some other things, so I'll have to put mine, this version together.
So then, let's see, I have new language for,
Any more copies? or no?
yep, there's a hold up
Okay.
here.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. On the first paragraph on the second page, right under the goals, that starts progress on these goals and the district improvement plans. I'm proposing that we take out the last sentence, or the last half of the last sentence, starting with "it will."
Okay.
And say the following. As of January 2016, possibilities being considered include adding an addition to the back of the Brownfield house and making ADA required renovations to the first floor, upgrading and renovating the entire building, or selling the Brownfield house and relocating the school administration elsewhere. Once a course of action has been agreed to and endorsed by other town officials and boards, this goal will be reprioritized.
Yeah.
Give people a sense of where we're
Right.
at. So that's the proposal. Then, under the next paragraph with the K-wing,
Yep.
just adding on to the end,
At
give
the
people
end.
a little bit more
Okay.
info. If the project is approved by the MSBA in January, the school committee will move forward with a request to the town at ATM 2016 to fund the feasibility study conducted in partnership with MSBA, anticipated to begin in the fall of 2016. That study, which will take approximately 1 year to complete, will involve multiple public input sessions and community outreach. If all goes as planned, the school committee will return to ATM 2018 with a finalized plan and request for funding. Construction would thus begin during the summer/fall of 2019.
Great.
Do I have all that timing right, Linda?
I hate to pin us down that much, because what they may have us do is have a special town meeting if their timeline is different than all town meeting.
This is kind of the ideal timeline.
We could say that then, right? We could put
Ideally.
somewhere in there that this is,
If all goes planned, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying, if all
Yeah.
goes as planned.
Do you think it would take all the way to,
Oh, yeah.
let's say, 2018? Because you're saying 2016,
So this year, we
17.
fund the feasibility study.
Yeah.
That takes a year.
that's 2017.
Then we gotta go to 2017 to get the funding. If we get the funding, actually, it's borrowed debt, right? It'll be excluded debt?
Yes.
So that starts immediately after town meeting? Yes. But you're not gonna start building until this summer, right?
But the town meeting would be 2018.
And of course, you wouldn't put it out to bid until you had it approved, otherwise bidders don't, there's a lot of work goes into this kind of a bid, so they want to make sure there's approved money before they bid on it.
Right, but it would have to be 2018, right? Because you get the feasibility study approved in 2016. That probably won't start until September. It's going to take a year. So then you have about 6 months left over to go back to ATM with a finalized plan to get the funding. That's 2018 ATM. And then construction can start probably June that year, yeah?
So construction could begin in 2018, not 2019.
It would be FY '19, but it would be in the year 2018.
2018, okay.
So that last,
Should change to 2018.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep,
but the all-town meeting would be 2018.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and we don't know how long it would take to build, right? What do we?
Do you know there'll be multiple public input sessions and community outreach in the
You're gonna have to
feasibility
have it.
study?
You're totally
But
gonna-
during the feasibility study?
I would think you're gonna have to have some hearings on what the town,
I just, it's run by the, however MSBA wants to do it, and I don't know whether they do their feasibility study and then have you do outreach and input.
Okay.
Or whether it's done at the same time.
Okay.
Like, their feasibility study is, to me, like really looking at the system, and they may at that time have some sessions, but I don't know what their course of action will be until we get more into it. I just would hate to make a promise and then that's not part of what they do. I don't know.
well, at what point though? I mean, you certainly don't wanna do this without public input.
Right, but do they do that after the feasibility study gives them options for you to share with the public?
And then
Like,
people
we
get
find
input
out
with
some
those.
info from that study.
How could they come up with an option though without getting input?
They're gonna give us many options, they said.
Right.
Several.
So
Okay,
we could use that as part of our,
You think
Or
their
outreach
procedure
is
might
to-
be to, yeah.
I just don't know where they involve the public. I don't know whether
maybe
they,
that's not their thing.
what if
maybe
the
that's our
school
thing.
committee, involves, what if the school committee sponsors public input session?
but what are they inputting on? If we don't know where they're, what direction
But
they're
we
heading?
say throughout the process, the school committee.
maybe
will
that-
It could be a
keep the
separate, it could
public
be a separate
informed
sentence that's
and-
not linked to that study.
Well, how about, right, so it's a separate sentence.
During the process.
Say throughout the process, the school committee will keep the public informed and create opportunities for public input.
That's great. That's perfect.
Do you get that?
Throughout the process.
I know it's a separate
the school
sentence.
committee will-
Yes,
Okay.
I got it, basically.
Okay, great. All right, great. Next one is just a addition
2.36, didn't
to
we
the
settle on that?
technology,
The 2.5.
next paragraph, under the, after the sentence where it talks about Chris Boyle. Just adding, plans for 2016-17 include the continued use of iPads in grades 5 through 7 with the introduction of laptops for 8th graders.
Okay, if we wanted to mention
I think we do.
that. Okay,
I think we've already approved it, so.
okay.
I think that Sue, in her update, so in the ATM report is also a report by the principals of the two schools, as well as Linda, the school nurse, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I think that we let her do the announcement of the new associate principal. I'm assuming Sue will include
Okay.
that in her update.
All right.
Sue wrote her update, but I can't remember if that was in it or not. I can let you know.
Okay, we'll make sure it's somewhere. Okay, and then I think the only one is just a typo, the fiscal year 2016 paragraph that starts that, fiscal year.
Yeah.
Projects, included many noteworthy projects, I have
Oh, yeah,
projects.
yeah. I
I got that already. Okay. Okay, then I drafted something on enrollment, you had a question enrollment?
Yeah, I didn't know, that's one of those things I wasn't sure if.
Here's what I-
Go a lot of specific school stuff and more general, and if you wanted
Before we
to
move
do
off that
Yeah, go ahead.
paragraph right there, I did fill in Harvard's per pupil cost from
Right.
Lorraine,
Okay, yeah.
but I didn't have the percentage that was above the state average, and do we want that in
It
our
was-
report?
I left it because it was there last year. I didn't know if that was something that was,
It's up to you. I marked it to send you an email when I look it up tomorrow morning.
I think it's nice to
Okay.
have,
I
personally.
mean, it's very
but-
little over.
We're pretty much right around it, we're below, now we're
Below,
over.
Now we're over, and we're getting a little, it's, a little more each year, but not, still, considering performance to state average cost, it's looking real good,
Right.
Right.
you know,
Maybe we
so.
should put that sort of comparison in there. So we're not just saying, okay, well, we're higher than the state average, but also say, well, we're also.
Yeah, you
we're
could
very
also
Say the
compare
school
your
committee is
expenses.
pleased to note that
Right.
we
The
continue to
comparison.
manage our expenses while still being ranked one of the best schools in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
school districts.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And then you've got the numbers for the budget.
Yep, and the years, the fiscal years are changed, because we're actually approving FY '17 and FY '6, it's confusing,
So
but
this is
it's
here,
always
yeah.
the back year.
This is 17.
I changed it.
Yeah, okay.
From what was sent
Okay.
to me.
Well, it's 16, 17.
It's called FY '17 budget.
Okay, we always,
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
you
don't
used a
know how
school
that-
year with a
Yeah, yeah,
split,
that's
but
true, you're
fiscal
right.
year is the last, the
Yeah,
end
okay.
year, end date.
So I don't have the end of that end of that paragraph on my copy.
Okay, I can read it to you.
That'd be great.
I just said we are proud to be able to maximize with care our precious financial resources for the benefit of our students.
Perfect. All right. So then I took a stab at the enrollment.
And I moved the enrollment back,
I
just
don't
so
think
it made
matters
more
where it
sense.
goes. But people can tell me if they think this is all right. The school district experienced a steady decrease in enrollment beginning in 2006, when student population went from an all-time high of 1,307 to 1,133 in 2015-16. However, with a significant upswing of families moving into Harvard during the summer of 2015, the decline has significantly slowed, with anticipated growth from new housing in Devon's district is now projecting a modest increase in enrollment in 2016-17.
I don't think the 1133 is right. Is it?
Pulled it off my spreadsheet.
Can I see your book, Jennifer? Yeah. I think it's 1140.
Maybe I pulled the wrong column.
Could be because of.
1143.
1143?
Pre-K. We don't usually count pre-K. in that photo.
The first number wouldn't have included pre-K either.
So 1133 is without pre-K.
I could go back and try and figure out what pre-K was.
Okay.
1307.
Okay.
But I don't know if I have that on the spreadsheet. So if I don't, does DESE website have the pre-K enrollment?
No, they wouldn't. All right, sorry about that.
Sue says no. So can we keep it the way it is?
Yep.
Okay. You okay with that paragraph, Linda?
Yes.
Okay.
Student directory would have it.
Student directory? You want to go, oh, back then it would. I don't think I go that far back. Yeah, I could.
What year would it be?
2006.
I have that one.
I have that one too, I
Just
think.
save them all.
Did the pre-K program begin?
But not
That
every
was-
family's in the directory.
There
because
used to
it's
be
right
by,
around there.
by class.
Because it was
the
after I
students
got here. It was
listed.
Charles Horn started
Oh,
it.
the number? Oh,
Just the
the
students.
name.
Right around Students.
Yeah, even if they asked to not be in it,
No.
still in it.
So let's just leave it the
I
way
guess
that it
it's-
is.
You can't be sure.
Yeah.
We could find it if we needed to, if you wanted us to.
I don't think you need to. All we're talking about is the kids that were in pre-K or not, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Awesome. So I think what I recommend at this point is, actually, to have you make the changes. Say that we've approved it as is. Give you the authority to get any updates from Kirsten and Nancy separately, so it's not a
Just to them.
a, open meeting law violation. Give you the authority to reject or edit or approve
Okay.
whatever they're submitting.
Okay.
And then you can send that off to Julie Doucette.
And do you want to say it
Thursday.
beforehand?
You can copy me. Yeah, that'd be great.
Copy or preview?
I trust you. You can copy me.
All right,
Unless
okay.
there's something significantly different from what we discussed tonight. and-
Okay.
So we need a motion to do that. So I move.
That Jennifer has the,
I move that we approve the annual town report as amended,
as amended this evening, and
with
with
Pending?
pending input from Nancy Mancelotti and Kristen write. Jennifer can edit that in or amend as she sees fit. And she will copy Susan Mary and send it to Julia Doucette by Thursday.
Good. Get that?
Anything else?
I'm recording it.
So smart. All right.
That's a long one.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, Maureen, anything from your point of view that we should add that didn't get reflected about Devon's in here that you'd like to see in there? You're okay?
I'm okay.
All right. Okay, great. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you. Once again, it's like a rite of passage doing the ATM report.
I figured it was.
Next year, you made it so much faster. All right. Review the FinCom questions and answers. So, where's that wonderful list of questions?
I have a new one updated.
Did each person have
Yeah.
like a section, because the font was different for some?
Well, Lorraine can probably give you more info on that than anybody else.
Yeah, what it is the various finance committee members sent it in to Tim, and then he cut and paste from their questions. And he also tried to get it so that they were in the right categories, because some came in with categories, some came in without it. So it really was just cut and paste. That's why.
Okay.
I have one. It does.
Okay. So given that this, let's see, where are we on time?
Oh, it is.
Given that this is probably our biggest
Sort of
commitment,
like the
priority,
pages,
responsibility, probably be good to just read through these and make sure everybody understands the answers.
Yeah, I'll make sure it's the same.
So,
Do you have-
you want to take the first section and then I'll?
Sure.
Okay.
So in order to answer these questions, Lorraine, Susan Mary, and I got together and did what we could, and then at times I went back and got more research, supporting documents, which I have to show you tonight, that type of thing. So the first question is, I don't think I need to read the question, do I? So what are the enrollment numbers expected to be? And that's, we wrote, so in blue are the responses. We expect enrollment to be even or slightly increase in, we expect enrollment to be even or slightly increase in the numbers based on the building that is underway in Devon's. That sentence needs some work. Sorry about that. Little choppy. And Maureen, maybe you could check this. They plan to build 120 family units of varying sizes over the next few years, and this will increase our student population by an estimated 60 to 80 students overall. Sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it talks about the per pupil cost, and rather than get into that formula, Lorraine graciously went all the way back to 2009, so we have a chart that shows 2009, what goes into the
Right, the categories that they
formula.
comparison and whatever, so. It shows not only year by year what the per pupil is, but how many students we had at that time, to kind of show that there is not a direct correlation to the number of students and the per pupil cost, which this question seemed to think there was.
Right. Okay, great.
Yep, and so we have that. Next question is a little tricky. In your budget book, there is a page that we entitled Non-Recurring Items Needed to Maintain Level Service. And this question asks us,
Can you list?
can we list what's different between this year and last year on the non-recurring items? So I took a stab at answering that, or we did as a group, and it says, many of the items on our zero-based budget are different than last year. We hope to be helpful by pulling out items of note that may have raised questions and provide an explanation ahead of time. The term non-recurring may have created some of the confusion. So what we meant to say on that list were these were things that might be noted to be kind of a large size, but different than had been on the budget before. But there was an explanation as to why it was on there. So one of the examples would be a digital research ability from the library. And the explanation is, well, we're going more digital, and so as that changes, our students need the ability to research in a different way than they have in the past. So those things, anytime you have a zero-based budget, many things are going to look different on the next budget. So we put that as an explanation.
Right, what they wanted was what was in the budget last year that didn't recur, and what would the cost savings be? But it's just too much work to go through the budget and find everything that was in there that's now not in there. And
Compared to what's in there now.
right, so I think if you're going to go down to that granular level, it would take us weeks.
Yeah, so for instance, if we ask to replace some instruments for the music department this year, they're different than the music instruments we asked for last year, because you wouldn't ask for the same ones to be replaced. So that, as well as curricular items, are different. And our whole idea by doing zero-based is to go back to the source and say, well, if you have enough of that, don't order it again just because you had it. And maybe you're using something different than you used in the past. So next question was, some positions are being hired on a one-year basis since they may not be needed going forward. Could you provide a list of these positions, associated salaries, and whether they have benefits? And I put the learning assistant positions are yearly with benefits. The need for these positions is based on individual education plans of students. We also have the new Title I support position at Bromfield that exists on a year-to-year basis dependent upon funding and an evaluation of the success of the support program. I don't know what else to say about that. Do you want to do central office? or
Sure.
want me to-
There was a question about the summer curriculum work at 30,000. Part of this is because we combined other PD into the summer curriculum, so it looked like that alone went up, but it is PD for the district overall. That number will be high going forward because that's the PD required. So that's when teachers actually have the time to go and actually work as a unit and cross units, where they just don't have that time in the year. So that number is going to be level going forward, or at least at that level. PD costs, so this is an explanation of that. We reclassified lines from non-salary into salary. When you add up the salary and non-salary PD lines and you compare them from 2014, compare them to 2015 and 16, the difference is $13,947, which we offset by $9,000 from Title I. The remaining difference of $4,947 comes from increasing the teacher reimbursement line from $40K to $60K. So that's, if people go off and do their own PD work, they are entitled up to a certain amount, around
I put it in here. It's further down, 1265.
Right. This was done in anticipation of coursework reimbursement for newly hired staff members that have replaced retiring staff members. The teacher's contract has an increasing amount for reimbursement each year as a benefit. If approximately half of the 95 teachers take advantage of this reimbursement rate, we'll spend the $60,000. So that line, I think, has traditionally been under budgeted, so we're just trying to get it to be accurate. Okay, school facilities. Linda.
Okay. Fuel costs, Lorraine provided, $22,000 has been spent on fuel so far.
Not going to help.
Next.
At this point in time, not a real number.
One of the points of reduction was from Mark Force's budget. He took the sprinkler system in the boiler room down $500, and someone asked how he justified that. And so I asked Mark, and his words are, I'm reducing the cost by $500 by changing the pipe run and labor to install those pipes. Before we were thinking about a fairly long run, we're going to install it in a different location using less pipe and labor. Next was Bromfield. They thought that musical instruments and gym equipment purchases should be in capital instead of curriculum material, and we disagree. It had in the past been in capital, but we're really kind of reserving capital to be about furniture or items not related to curriculum. And so we just put, we now believe the expenses are directly related to curriculum requirements and are categorized correctly. In the past, these have been in the small capital line, but we plan to include them in the curriculum line henceforth. New services included in the curriculum budget, $6,000 for reading or grammar-based tech program, and our explanation is techs are becoming digital, which has a different type of cost. Next was also about the research database in the library, and we wrote the ProQuest database is a new research tool that's increasingly necessary as students access resources in a digital form. Next question asked about what other fees are paid by students, including transportation. So you'll see Jim gathered from different clubs and activities that students might be participating in. These are voluntary participation items, and this is the list he got back. And at the end, I just put the bus fee, whoops, I forgot to put the amount.
$225 per student.
Sorry
right,
about
with
that.
a $600 family cap. Yeah.
I had it in there and forgot to put that part. Sorry about that. What's the cap again? 600?
600. It only makes sense if you have more than, well, that third one
Our
gets a
society's only
discount.
$3 a year.
Only if you have
Yeah, so.
3 in 1 year.
Well, I mean, I did, one of mine was free for
Just
that.
seems like one longer.
Yeah, really. All right, it's, number 5 is, in the past, did parents pay for AP class workbooks? And they did pay for all types of workbooks in the past, but that was found to be against regulations, so that was changed. They said we had a new art teacher on the list of salaries, and it is not a new art teacher. It's Martha Brooks moved from her art position to the drama position, and so then her position needed to be filled. So it's not an extra position, it's just where people were shuffled to after our drama teacher left. The next one is not a question, so I didn't answer it. It's a statement, so I don't know what to do about that one. May go back to that one later. 8 is, will the anthology continue, cost continue? And we put yes, as long as the teacher continues that project. Next asked about the additional instructional support teacher in Bromfield, which is grant funded. So that will be a year-to-year position based on the funding. And next is all about athletics. Do you want to take that one?
Oh, sure, we can run the attachment. So we will provide a schedule of the sports fees paid, and we do have that for 13, 14, 14, 15, and year-to-date, so that'll be attached. The budget is showing new expenses of $348 and $522 for middle school boys and girls soccer officials. Were these unpaid positions before? Answer, unfortunately, the fees for soccer were left out of the budget. These costs have not gone up. Why the large increase in swim team officials' fees? The swim official fees went up because we have separated the boys and girls meets. So that's additional. While understanding the desire to lower user fees for student families, there is the question of doing this at the cost to taxpayers. Yep, that's a statement. What's the distribution percentages of who pays for and which groups ask for user fees? Do user fees only support after-school activities, or are other after-school activities included? Again, there are the listing of the fees that we found through Jim. What are other towns doing? How are other towns dealing with this problem? Many towns have determined a set price for sports activities, and they support the remaining costs in their operating budgets. Lorraine did some great research and found out what the area towns are paying for out of their omnibus budget for sports fees versus athletic fees, and found while Harvard generally pays about 90-ish% of all the athletic costs, most towns, what is that listing there, Lorraine?
Most of them, I would say, there's a few of them that are very low, but I'd say it settles in the 40 to 50% range. This is off of MASBO.
Yeah.
This actually happened this afternoon, the survey came through. So I will update it with the ones that came outside the survey,
Okay.
put it on the survey, and then it'll be an attachment.
Great. So Harvard is definitely paying more
Yes.
towards, or asking families to cover more of the costs than other towns.
Yeah, the last time the last time the athletic fund was not in deficit, it was funded 90% by user fees. Then the deficit obviously made that percentage go down.
Yeah.
So last year it was 80%.
Because we're covering it somewhere, somehow.
Well, and it ended in deficit.
Right, okay.
So,
Okay, is there a study group report that could be shared with the FinCom members that goes into some detail? What is the research behind your coming to FinCom? We're going to attach the athletic report. It's great. Also, I wondered if any of them want to come to our FinCom meeting on the 23rd. I don't know if that would be appropriate, but certainly they could speak to things, or we can simply give them the presentation and do that, or if you could be there, that would be great.
I know that, I know Sue Toll brought it up at some point.
I would think that
If it would be
FinCom
helpful.
would have to be open to taking some time for a presentation, and I'm not sure they will there.
So I don't know if it's a presentation or as a reference point.
If there's particular
There's
questions about how they came up with the proposal. If it's appropriate, I know that, Sue or.
I can ask.
Yeah.
You want me to
Maybe ask
I
Alice
can
to
ask
see what she
Alice.
says.
Yeah.
And maybe if that part could be narrowed down, because they would be sitting through a lot
Yes.
of other
Right.
points,
Yeah.
because the whole budget has gone through.
Yep.
So,
I'll
When is-
see.
when
There's
is
timing on
this
it. It's
meeting?
8:30 on the 23rd of January. Coming up. Has the study looked at a sliding scale? They have and plan to use one if full funding is not granted. Have we considered how this will look to taxpayers? Why isn't this in the form of an article to be brought to vote at ATM? We see the funding as an ongoing request, so including the cost in the omnibus budget seemed like the best path towards funding. Please provide a chart comparing Harvard's current and your proposed lowered user fees by sport to the current as available user fees for the same sports in the similar districts surrounding Harvard.
we have that. It would be an attachment.
TBD, TBA.
Mhm.
By sport, could you please supply us with the participant numbers for Harvard for a couple of years before and since implementing user fees? Fees were implemented beginning in FY '99 and incrementally increased until FY '02 when fees covered all of the athletic expenses. We do not have participation records from those past years. HES. Back to you, Linda.
Okay. This talks about why the Devon's offset to salaries is only at HES and why it's increasing by $45,000 for Bromfield. And we just put, we are decreasing our school choice offset by the same amount. The choice offset has always been applied to Bromfield for simplicity. We are intentionally decreasing reliance on choice due to the anticipated new students arriving from Devon's with the new building project. Is that acceptable to everyone as an explanation? Okay. Next is pupil services. It says that there's 2 new Bromfield learning assistant positions, and are they benefited? And it says the learning assistant positions are benefited. The need for these positions is based on the individual education plans for specific students. Technology. It talks about the increase to have the fiber internet as an annual cost, or was it a one-time cost? And we put, this is an annual cost that replaces the cost of the slower cable system for which we paid $4,000. We also saved an annual amount of $3,000 for email archiving using the new system. So basically, it is a $10,000 increase to have fiber each year with those 2 savings. Next was a statement, but we still chose to put an explanation. And it says, the cost of the position is not fully offset by other staff reductions. And I put, yes, as explained in the budget explanation page, the salary of the education technology coordinator was previously in the HES library media line, which now shows a decrease of $48,000. The remaining funds to cover this new position came from reducing the staff in preschool and special education, $10,000 and $50,000. Please provide a detailed analysis of the future annual costs that will be associated with the new grade 7, grade 8 pilots and the MacBooks for 9 through 12. That information is in the budget book in that location we've noted. Next was how well did the grade 5 and 6 pilots are going, educational results associated with the availability of the technology and metrics for success. I wrote, this information was requested and shared with the school committee. Please see the attached presentation. And for that, we have the presentation that the whole 5th grade team made, which had the embedded videos, which was really a sample of how the experience for students has changed in the classrooms. And that was presented, I'm pretty sure, in the late summer of this past summer. So I have that, and then we also have the survey results. both from the students and the parents. And so I thought we'd include that, but we even have more than that in the way of data and evaluation of the program, but I thought these might be the best pieces of evidence to give to them. And then it talks in number 5 about the tech position changing to special ed positions, as well as the HES library aide from full-time to half-time. Have special education needs decreased, or were we previously overstaffed in this area? And it's just hard to quantify. It says students' needs are continually changing. Their needs are evaluated and resource allocated as needed. Do you expect that the present full-time employees will continue to stay with us, or will we need to hire new employees? Don't even know exactly what that means, but we wrote, we do not anticipate the need to hire new employees. Is there a reason to expect that the persons providing services on a half-time basis will have talent and skills equivalent to the present full-time employees? The special education staff member who became .5 during the 13-14 school year requested the change from full-time to part-time. So it's the same exact teacher. So that question's irrelevant on that. And we decided to change the pre-K position to .5 because the full-day program was not cost-efficient for the district. And so that teacher did change, but the person we hired who is in place is content and satisfied with the .5 position. Is there a waiting list for students in needs of special education support? No, and this would not be permitted by law. Will the reduction in service capability lead to a waiting list? See prior answer. You state that this change will create an additional benefited position. Does this mean that the 3 positions changed from full-time to half-time will continue to be benefited? Half-time professional staff must be offered benefits. The increase in a benefited position comes from adding the ed tech coordinator position. Note, although staff are offered benefits from the town, not all eligible employees choose to take them. Whether they accept benefits or not is privately kept information and may not be a condition of hire. Next was about the technology leases and why is it charged to Devens. The use of technology in our one-to-world design will increase from 2 grade levels to 4 grade levels, hence the increase in the lease cost. And the school committee has committed Devens funds to technology for the past 4 years. And there were 3 late additions to the questions, and one was about the wellness incentive, and early retirement, and the line decreasing. And there may be some confusion about the wellness incentive. It's for hourly employees who do not miss days of work due to illness. It's not for professional staff. And we expect fewer retirements, hence the decrease in the retirement incentive. They're giving us 2 years' notice, so we actually can budget for how many we think will be retiring. Then it's asked about the technology stipend being available to all teachers or only technology staff. It's available to all teachers. And what's the rationale for putting it in the technology line item? And we chose to include the stipend in the technology budget because it fit that category. What's the budget for CPAC, which is the Parent Special Education Advisory Committee? And we just put expenses for CPAC are covered by the pupil services budget on an as-needed basis.
There isn't a budget per se, this comes out of
No,
that.
separate.
So these, once they are finalized with answers, will be shipped off to the Finance Committee by, when do you anticipate that all the things will be pulled in?
We need to turn it in by the 20th. I'm sure we'll have it done by the end of this week.
Okay. Get it done sooner would be great. Okay. Thank you.
Everybody's work.
The 40, 50 some odd questions and statements. It takes a lot of work to go through these after having completed the budget, and it's not necessarily that fun, but
Is this
it'll help go
a
through.
normal amount of questions
Yep.
from FinCom?
Yeah. They looked at last year's and it is.
It's hard because when you live and breathe it for so long, the explanations are very clear, but to write them down to people who weren't through that same process is a little tricky. So,
So then we will go in front of the Finance Committee on the 23rd, morning of the 23rd. I anticipate there'll be follow-ups to the answers we provided, as well as additional questions. Linda and I and Lorraine, you're able to be at that? Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So Lorraine, Linda, and I, and anybody else who can be there. Jennifer, you said you could.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Well, you already financed it. This is fun.
This is her fun.
It is, yeah. If I can, I will.
Okay.
I think there is some things, but I'll let you know.
It's also fine to come for part of it, not all of it.
Okay.
The more the merrier.
Is this your slide?
All right. Review the meeting minutes. So before we do that, just on top of the FinCom, I did bring actually an update from,
Fine.
well, I can do it during the liaisons. I'll do it during liaisons. So reviewing the minutes of the previous meetings. I have to find them now. I did have some edits, but not much. Anybody have edits, questions, corrections to the meeting minutes?
Why would I put this?
Here we go. Okay, so first is the minutes from the December, well, let's see, what do we start with? December 14th meeting. Anybody have corrections, edits? I have one under trip approval, Mary. The first one on the 14th. It says the trip will be opened for students. If we could just say open to
Yep.
students. And on page 3, under the second to last paragraph that starts, Mary Trephagen made a motion. You have to record the results of the vote.
Okay.
And it was 3-1-1. Abstention.
Okay, yep. Good one.
I don't have any other changes. Anybody else have anything?
There was it really is really minor on the time, the very end.
Yeah.
There was just a colon missing 9/11.
Oh, 9/11.
Yeah.
Let's do 911.
911.
Call.
That was like a
That's what you were thinking.
Freudian slip. Like, help me. Only kidding, only kidding.
We went over time. You had to stop thinking at a certain point, right? All right, November 23rd minutes. Edits, corrections.
My friends John and Timur are Boy Scouts, not yet Eagle Scouts, so that was my.
Oh, jeez, I'm promoting them.
Yes.
Boy Scouts, all right.
Um,
I would have thought of that if I thought of it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Eagle Scouts are usually like in high school, right?
On page 2, Mary, the second paragraph that starts, Dr. Dwight reviewed.
Uh-huh.
The last sentence, the second to last line, the SAMR model, it should probably be S capitals, SAMR.
All caps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have anything else for that meeting. Anybody else? Okay, and moving on to the minutes of November 16th.
Do you want to approve those first?
I don't have anything. Anybody have any of those? What, Maureen?
I didn't know if you wanted to approve them separately, so
No,
that
I'm
you
just
didn't
gonna
get
do a
mixed
batch.
up. Oh, okay.
One less motion, 2 less motions. Okay. Is there any objections? We'll consider the minutes of the November 16th, the November 23rd, and December 14th approved as amended. Seeing none, minutes are approved. Liaison report out. I'll start over here.
HES School Council finished work on the parent survey.
Already out.
Year for parents, and it went out end of last week.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to respond.
Right.
They put lots of time into
How long will it be open, do you know, off the top of your head?
I do not know.
Okay. So certainly we encourage people to
Maybe
go
2
and take
weeks?
the survey.
I want to say 2 weeks from last week, end of last week.
Great.
But, and the focus was, well, there's lots of questions, but they fine-tuned some good questions about reporting, that kind of thing, so. That's it, and we meet next Tuesday.
Okay.
Afternoon.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Mary?
So I emailed for HEAC, I emailed Brian Smith about our last meeting's concern about maybe trying to figure out HCTV in their electricity usage.
Yeah.
And he said there is a way, there's a couple ways we could do it. One is to install their own meter, but someone would have to be able to read it.
Right.
And there's a cost associated with both those things.
Right.
And that person would have to be able to figure out the calculations. So, you know, I don't know if that really makes sense. His other idea was to somehow estimate, like over the course of a year, estimate the cost. And you know, these people seem like they would actually be willing to do this.
Okay.
And then maybe just charge HCTV a certain amount of, you know, you could call it rent or utility cost or whatever, and, you know, work with HCTV on that as well.
Okay.
So those were that was his advice. The athletic advisory, we met after the vote for here, and I think we just talked about, I was late to that meeting, but I know we were talking about possible scenarios with FinCom, and also ways that there could be more unified fundraising.
Right.
Because now it's very separate, you know, just, you know, the baseball does the Christmas tree. So, you know, it'd be nice to have a booster club or just fundraising in general, like how we do that. You know, there were ideas about selling signage over the track, but then we don't know what those signage rules are.
Right.
Because we got a law office to, you know, give us a bunch of money, and then we put a sign out there for 5 years or whatever, but they have to do a lot of research as to what the rules are about signs, because there are some major rules.
Yeah.
But just, you know, I think the subcommittee is working on those other aspects now that the proposal is, you know, we approved it and it's into FinCom, and so now they have other things they want to deal with.
Yeah.
And I think we meet the 20-something or other.
Oh,
I know it's in the 20s of January.
Yes.
Okay.
In policy?
Policy meets
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
1:30.
Something like that.
And nothing from Parks and Rec.
Mary, I have a question. So was there enthusiasm for this idea of a unified booster club, or?
Well, I think yes and no, because you do have sports with their own, you know, fundraising.
Right.
Everything's all set up, so then what would happen to them? Would they be forced to dissolve? Which would not go.
Spread their fundraising efforts.
Yeah, so I think it's something that, you know, we're touching on, and, you know, we're trying to tease out some of these issues, but I think it's definitely in the can of worms category.
Okay.
As far as trying to really figure out how it could work. But I think it's worthwhile talking about, because, you know.
We even talked about how some sports are able to charge a fee to enter, and others aren't.
For admission?
So
Yes.
like
Like the
basketball
basketball,
games, if you go,
hockey.
you pay $5.
Right.
And you can't if you go to a track meet or
Right.
to something else. So we talked about that, and maybe also sort of streamlining that, maybe using community ed, that people could pay a certain price and get into any of those events. So if you paid $20 or $25, then you've got a all-season pass. So we're trying to increase people wanting to go to these events to support the different sports, but also fundraise in some equitable ways. So it's a tricky situation. Because you're right, in absence of a unified situation, everyone has just done their own thing. And yet some people are quite partial to their thing and the control over that money. And there hasn't been an organized way to even manage the money of a booster. So we're a long way from having that solved, but it's a good conversation.
Well, you can certainly understand the reticence to sharing money when they do the
Do
work
all
to
the
raise
hard
the
work,
money.
right.
But-
And it really depends on each particular sport, and if there are people motivated to go out and get everything organized and set up for a fundraiser, and keep doing that year after year.
And not everyone agrees that the students should have to do a whole lot of fundraising when they're already super busy. And,
Right.
then is it the parents that are doing it? And so it's
Who manages everything? Yeah.
There is a misconception out there, though, that the funds are already shared. Because I forget, I was in some setting that someone, not completely knowledgeable, but sort of was speaking with some authority, said, oh yeah, everybody raises money and it goes into a pot. And, no, it doesn't do that. So that I don't think even that there's awareness of how the funding does work. So education and transparency would be also a good thing to include. So.
And then we talked about the surveys that we're surveying students and parents after each season.
Oh, yeah.
So we have results from the fall.
Yeah.
And spirit, some type of,
We were talking about that.
getting the student body more interested maybe. And so Jim is actually meeting with the coaches, not the coaches, but the student
Captains.
coaches, the captains, to see what ideas they have, because we also know that adults can't impose any type of spirit ideas, or it'll just,
Will never work.
fall flat.
It's gotta come from them.
So it has to be what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good.
Maureen?
So I contacted Mass Development to get an update on the housing, since
Yeah.
that's kind of a variable. So just, the project is called the Village Green. The road and utilities are in, and the first home is going up, so there's a foundation down. And a reminder, Phase 1 is 18 total housing units, 10 singles and 8 duplexes, so 8 meaning, 4, I guess, 4 duplexes with 2
Say
units
that
each.
again. 10 singles.
10 singles and 8 duplex units. He says he believes that all of the singles and one of the duplex units are reserved, like already purchased or money down. And they think it's a safe assumption that the 11 units, the ones that are reserved, will be up and occupied by September 2016 or shortly thereafter. And then we had, didn't we have a percentage? It was like
0.68.
6.8 students per unit is how it has been in Devon's. So that kind of seems to go well with, I don't know,
Yeah, we think it
with
might
school
even be
choice and
actually
whatnot.
higher than that in this group of new housing.
What are the bedrooms?
True, they're 3-bedroom homes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did say that's, let's see, I think he said that there was a real mix of household types, like why people had reserved them. He also said, based on the strong demand, they're hopeful that phases 2 and 3 might break ground late spring this year. And so that's additional 20 single-family homes and townhomes and 40 rental apartments. But the first of those they would expect those to start being occupied till spring 2017 at the earliest, and I've never seen anything particularly timely, so. But I just thought if I keep asking them, keeping you guys up to date, it would be helpful.
That's helpful for us with anticipating the students.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
The DEAC meets tomorrow night. That's it.
Cool, thank you. Let's see, CPIC. So CPIC met and did the rankings of the 10 projects that have gone through capital for approval for the year. So the K-Wing study was the top of the list, unanimously voted. It received 104 votes out of, or points out of a possible 100 and something. But it was everyone's first choice. That would be funded through excluded debt, so that would go forward. We do need to decide on a fixed amount that we'll be asking for at All Town Meeting. And maybe, Lorraine, you could be instrumental in wording that request, because it might, I did see in that building report that is this something ATM didn't actually approve an amount, I think. They just simply approved the funding of, raised and appropriate the funding required kind of
It
thing.
could be because you didn't have the minutes, and the minutes sometimes have the detail of.
Okay,
the
so maybe
actual
we didn't have
amount.
that, but I don't know if we want to do up to
We'll see if we
or
can find the
something.
one from the Bromfield School.
Okay.
Well, and MSBA said they have.
Oh, they have language too,
They
right?
have
Okay,
model
okay.
language that they'll send us.
We'll need to start getting that together because all that stuff is due shortly.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. The next project at 88 points was the Pond Road Drainage Project. Let's see, the other school projects came in at, the school tractor received 74 points, and the TBS parking lot, as I said, received the lowest points of 64. So it looks like we move forward with the K-Wing study and the park and, the school tractor, which would be funded out of the capital and stabilization fund. So good news there. And things are still in flux on a couple of the items. If we go back and set as with favorable board sign-offs, that ranking may improve, but again, that isn't required for us to move ahead with the project. We do need a yes vote from historical, Concom, and the Board of Selectmen. That's it on capital. Finance, we did all the questions. Science labs, you got. Science fair. Kirsten wanted me to mention the science fair. Do you have the date of the science fair? Because we need judges for that.
I think it's late this year, isn't it?
Is it?
I can check on the
February.
website and see if it's on there.
That'd be great. Typically, the school committee judges and also awards. We did build in money in the school committee budget this year finally, so we're not picking individual pockets for an award, but we'll put that together. Be a gift card of some sort, I think.
Yeah, fine. We
Okay.
can denote that.
And we need at least 2 judges from the school committee, I believe. Kirsten's usually pretty good about doing it, and her husband has joined her in the past. You can't bring kids, which was my downfall last year. They were pretty strict about allowing children with you if you were a judge. So we need to have childcare covered if you want to be a judge for that event. Usually you show up at 2? About 2, and it runs, the judging should be over by about 5:30, I believe, and then someone needs to go back, and doesn't need to be the judges, but someone from school committee would present the awards. So we'll bring that up again at our second meeting in January for seeing who can cover, but if you're interested.
I'm interested. I just need to know the date.
Yeah. Mary's going to get it for you, and Kirsten will give you an update at the next meeting.
And then I would have to abstain from judging my own children's projects, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't be able to do that. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Future agenda items. I think we're due for a review of the school improvement plans and the status on the goals, I believe. We certainly have the policy, the security camera policy, the calendar.
We might have more policy though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
After tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, so any policy updates? I had others written down. Any other? You and I have to write the budget book entry. Any other agenda items? Am I missing?
We could probably have certainly science lab furniture.
Yeah, that's the standard ongoing capital project updates. Thank you, Steve. I'm just trying to think if there are, sorry, I'm hesitating because I thought there was something, oh, the MOU? I don't know if we want to bring
Oh,
the
the
cable
cable
MOU
MOU?
back. We certainly need an update from that, whether we're gonna, we give your council recommendation, or recommendations from our legal counsel, and then if he thinks they can put something together or not, whether we just say, okay, well, let's estimate and take a stab in the dark at a $5,000 per year fee or whatever, but we need to decide that as a committee. Next meeting, could bring that up. Anything else that we deferred? Anything else anyone wants? I don't have anything tonight.
Can't think of anything
Nope,
else.
okay.
I can't find the date. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. I'll send you an email.
I have an email and.
It's not showing up on the calendar.
Okay. And I have not, typically, there's a quad board or an all boards meeting, but that's not usually until, I believe, March or so. I don't have a date on that yet. Okay. Marty is not our interested citizen, she's a press person.
It's amazing how much easier it is to pay attention with a few extra layers.
When you're warmer, I know, it is cold in here. All right, I'll open it up to any closing school committee commentary. Maureen, anything for you?
I know you know, but just so everybody else knows, my attendance has been sporadic and probably will continue for some time. My kids have at least 4 different activities on Monday nights, and sometimes my husband's around and sometimes he's not.
You're on.
Whatever, it's just kind of where it's at.
Got it.
Do my best.
We all understand. Thanks. Mary?
I love the Hildreth Elementary School sign.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, isn't that great?
I love the shape of the arch like that. I think it's
Yep.
great. It looks great.
Yeah.
And it matches Bromfield's in the,
Yes.
Yeah.
The lettering.
Very excited to see that.
Science Fair is Friday, February 26th at 2:30.
Okay. Thanks.
When I first moved to Harvard, and I came to visit the schools, I hadn't moved, but I came to visit the school. I didn't know if I was in the right place, and I was meeting Christine Reel. I thought, this looks like the elementary school, so I'm going to go in here. So, nice to see this sign. It's beautiful.
And ever since I moved here, I've thought the same thing. So it was one of my, we've got to get a sign.
Yeah.
Looks nice.
Great. Linda, anything for you?
Nope,
Maureen?
thanks.
Mary?
Nope.
Great. I'm all set. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again for the finance committee for the nice questions. A lot of work. There are if there are no objections, I'll consider the meeting adjourned. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
At 8:02.
I know, at 8:02, nice.
I told Linda it's going to be an early meeting. Good night.
They're home alone. Do you keep extra packets, or it's just the one extra packet?
My kids, because we hadn't
You want it?
in a while, they freaked out.
I'll take it back.
To my mother-in-law,
Sometimes
who came
someone
over
comes
after
to
watching
our
them. The little girl was screaming. God damn.
Does it? Okay, sure, yeah.
I feel so bad for her. I think I
Thanks for
hope
doing
that doesn't
that.
happen to me when I'm a grandmother.
That happens to me sometimes, actually.
Oh.
Well, they like coming, but the other day I had them and I
know.
pawned them off on my sister, and they were like, "No, we want you," and I'm like, "Too bad, you're not getting me."
I think once I leave,
I gotta go
it's
somewhere
fine.
else.
I think it's
They
the
cry when things don't go the way
An hour
they think they're
before.
gonna.
Who's that, the kids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she was saying.
It just got me when I mentioned Nana, and they say,
It's been so long since she had a meeting. And I was like,
Oh.
"No, not again."
My daughter gets upset that I have a meeting, right? I'm like,
They
do you know how much
upset
time
it.
I have spent with you over the last 10
I know.
It's a meeting! 3 hours, I'll be gone!
yeah, when can you leave early? They asked me that.
Your husband come
Like,
get
say,
your
when
son.
are you leaving?
Yeah.